Well, it just keeps getting better and better here on Dolphin Tales. Joining me today is a JU legend, an NBA Hall of Famer, a guy who helped put Jacksonville University on the map, man who probably needed no introduction, Mr. Artis Gilmore. Artis,
right.
thank you for joining me.
You got to continue with that introduction.
I could just keep going. We could just ask
great.
Siri.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me. Like I said, when we first decided to start Dolphin Tales as a show to bring alumni back, you were certainly someone that was on kind of our short list, and to have you on today is an honor, really.
Thank you.
So we were talking beforehand, and we were talking about Frank Pace, who we had on earlier, who did the wonderful documentary Jacksonville Who. So I guess we should start with the 1970 team. Seems appropriate.
Yeah, well, of course, Frank and I, we've known each other over 50 years when we both were students here at this great institution. Frank, of course, was around. He played on the soccer team. He was on that undefeated soccer team, and Frank decided that, of course, he went to Los Angeles. I was reading his book, and there was some little quotes in there that I didn't remember, but certainly once he spoke about them, then I could certainly identify and remember the time frame when they took place.
Sure.
But Frank has done very well. He started off as a marketing person out in San Diego, and then he just kind of gradually moved into the film industry, and then he's been tremendously successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and having him and several other alum that were part of that documentary, obviously great for the university. To have something like that about our school on Amazon, on YouTube, an actual documentary about your time here, featuring that team was incredible. So when we had Frank on, I went back and watched it again, and the stories that were told. I know there was a round table just right over here at the River House, and you guys were talking back. So why don't you just, in maybe a brief form, we don't have the whole documentary available, but just talk to me a little bit about that team and how special that was for you personally and for the university.
Spending those 2 years at Gardner-Webb and then transferring to Jacksonville University, it was just an extraordinary time here in the country. Just 2 years before 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and so we had that culture, that type of those type of experiences that we were all dealing with, and then for that present time to be able to enter Jacksonville University, and just the Jacksonville experience alone was just fascinating. And we were able to, as a group of individuals, we were able to come together, and became a family. Joe Williams, Tom Wasden, and the players, all the players. It was just a different experience from just previously a couple years before at Gardner-Webb. And of course then having that opportunity to move forward and compete in the NC2A tournament, and just watching and observing the move. It was a movement, a really positive movement in the entire community of Jacksonville. That was an experience,
I'm sure,
50 years ago that I will never forget. Wonderful.
I'm sure. Back then, obviously, we didn't have an NFL team. You were the ticket in town, really.
That's right. JU basketball just kind of, in a sense, was the experience in this city, in this community. The things that we were able to accomplish, like for an example, basketball in this part of the country is not really, it's never been a big deal. But if you mention football, wow, you're right at the top. But just to have that experience competing against Florida State was really, really high at the level. We were able to bring the capacity at the Coliseum. We had 12,000 people, and to watch that game between Florida State in Jacksonville. It developed a little short rival for a period of time, but it was good and it was exciting, and the entire Jacksonville city community, they become a part of this program.
And when I first came up for my recruiting trip, so I knew about Jacksonville, knew of Jacksonville University once they started contacting me. I'm from down in South Florida. I remember coming on my recruiting trip and the baseball guys took me to a basketball game. So went to Swisher and I heard about the 1970 team. And so, honestly, when you look up Jacksonville University, JU anything, your team's still there. I mean, how is that for you to see that legacy is still such a big part of the university today?
Well, absolutely. And this institution being a small program, and of course we just removed some of the sports. We had football for a while, and considering the student population and the growth of this institution over the last 50 years, it's been pretty special, especially to be remembered and as part of a unique and just an extraordinary part of the program that has made an impact that we will never forget, and we just something that I'll always remember, and many of the people of this community will as well.
So talk to me a little bit about the team and your style of play. Looking or watching the documentary, talked a lot about how, like you said, you became a family. There were a lot of things that you needed to overcome as a team, bringing people together, bringing in new players. And there was this certain confidence that the team started early on, and you brought through to the championship game. And one of the things, and did I understand this correctly, that you were one of the first teams, if not the first team, to have warm-up music?
Absolutely, that's right. Sweet Georgia Brown, one of our players, Chip Dublin, was from New York City, and there's a certain style of play by individuals from New York, and that kind of a playground between the legs over the Harlem Globetrotter
Sure.
type of experience, if I may say. And Chip brought that to the team, and we as a group, we just sort of blended in. It just all of a sudden, Chip goes out he entered the court, and we start to warm up, and Chip started at the top of the key and taking the ball between his leg and tossing it, and kind of flipping the ball to different individuals that we moved towards the basket for layups. And then, boy, everybody then start playing the music in the background and said, wow, what a combination. So that was kind of a catchy experience, and certainly allow our guys to relax and become even more unique as a group.
That's fantastic. All right, so I did hear that right. So when my kids are very interested in this, which is great for me. They're very young. So they're always asking, who I'm going to talk to, and I'll tell them about you. And I was trying to find a picture to show them, who Artis Gilmore is, and certainly, you can find a ton of stuff out there on you. But one of the things that just had me laughing was it's a picture of you when you're with the Celtics chasing down Muggsy Bogues. And so I tried to explain to them the height differential. Muggsy was an inch shorter than my wife, who played soccer here. So I was saying, now imagine, that's like me chasing my 4-year-old. Yeah. Is pretty much it. So, it had me rolling last night and just thinking through, that period in the NBA. The fact that you 6-time All-Star, is that right?
6-time in the NBA and 5 times in the ABA.
Unbelievable. So, and that period of time where there's just absolute legends that people still talk about, try to emulate today. So talk to me about just your time in the NBA and playing and being one of those iconic players.
Well, speaking in terms of pioneers, we started off in the ABA, and I don't want to maybe if it's appropriate to go into the details. Sure. and how that developed. Uh, Growing up in an environment in my hometown, Chipley, and large family, and the like of a number of things, food, clothes, whatever, you list, you put that on the list, and certainly it would top the list. And one of the things that I wanted to be able to do when that contract was signed, and certainly that was the agreement with the ABA, that I would be able to provide some things for my mother and my father who have struggled their entire life, even, I mean, as kids growing up. And then they're trying to raise a huge family, my brothers and sisters. So that was my thinking when I made that decision to go to the ABA. There was a guaranteed contract. And one of the most impressive things was that if you are injured within this extended period of time, you will continue to receive these funds. And the bell rung. Wow, I can continue. If I run down the floor and rip up my leg, and I still be able to support my family, my mom and dad, myself, and which was a little bit later, my wife. So that was part of the decision to enter the ABA. But then after 5 years, of course, the league merged. Then there was a question of whether or not the ABA players, can you compete at this level? And they just made it become political, just like everything else.
Sure.
A political event, and so they said, oh, you guys are the run and gun league, and that ugly, colorful red and white and blue basketball, and we receive all these kind of negative things. But the NBA, they merged, and I don't know if you want to call it a merger or not. They accepted a fourth franchise from the ABA. It was the Nets, it was the San Antonio Spurs, Indiana Pacers, and whom else? Denver. Those 4 teams came in. And it was pretty amazing, an NBA franchise now costs probably close to $1 billion. During that time, it was only $4 million per franchise to enter the NBA.
Wow.
And so, anyways, my career moved on after 5 years with the Kentucky Colonels, and we had success. We won the NBA championship in 1975, but prior to that, 72, I was most valuable player. Why am I talking about my statistics?
You're allowed to.
Pat,
I started.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I was MVP, and then we moved to the NBA. And because of the Chicago Bulls originally had my draft right, so I ended up, my next move after they closed the doors with the Kentucky Colonels, I went to Chicago. And we started off really poorly, just trying to have success. In fact, the year prior to that, before the merger, Chicago Bulls only won 24 ball games the whole entire year.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden you put this super group supposedly together. In fact, out of college, I was the first player from the draft pool, and Scott Mays was the first player from college, from the University, from Indiana. And for those first 3 years, Scott May did not play one game because mono the first year, he was out for the entire year. Second year, he tore up his knee, and he was out. The next year, he tore up the other knee, damage to his other knee. So he missed 3 years that I was there, and he was the first round draft choice. And so when you attempt to put individuals together to have the kind of success that most franchise would like to have, none was like Boston. I was in Boston just a short time, and that was one of the greatest experiences that I had throughout my 17-year professional career.
Again, you look back on that period of time, and like I said, when I was looking up and I found that picture of you with the Celtics, there's a ton of stuff about the Bulls, obviously, and one of the things that I saw a bunch was the all-time team. And so to have you there with Rodman and MJ and those guys, I mean, that's got to feel amazing for you, and rightfully so. I mean, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Right. I've been invited back to Chicago a couple of times, and that was during the playoffs. And fortunately, I was there during the All-Star game the past February, and that was just on the verge of the pandemic, and it was starting to hit the country pretty hard at that time, because after arriving, coming back, then on March 8th, I think, that was the TPC week. But anyways, being recognized as one of the top 10 best players in the history of the Chicago Bulls, I spent 6.5 years there. And as I said before, we started off pretty poorly my first year there, but from there on, we were really competitive, but they changed players. For whatever reason, the Chicago Bulls did not really make the kind of an effort that I thought that could have been made in order to certify and bring about a team, until Michael Jordan arrived in 84. And from that point on, Michael was scoring 60, 70 points, and then the following, after 3 years, his fourth year in, that's when they signed Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. And that was that little edge. And then they struggled for 1 year after that, of course, losing to a Detroit back-to-back series. And then they were able to take control. And then this franchise in Chicago Bulls become the established, and with that combination of players, and won a number of championships. But to think in terms of the selection of the greatest players of that era for the Chicago Bulls, and to be included in that's pretty special, Pat.
Yeah, being enshrined in the Hall of Fame, and that was 2011 when you went in?
2011.
2011.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. I mean, I went, like I said, went back and watched your acceptance speech just to get ready for today and just see what it was all about. I think you held it together well, There was a little choked up, and I mean, rightfully so. I can't imagine being on that stage and having that experience. So talk to me a little bit about that moment of being on stage and accepting your enshrinement.
The experience was just incredible, starting in April, and I received a call. Well, just to drop back a little bit farther, I had been nominated a few times earlier for the Hall of Fame, but for whatever reason, it never materialized. So then I was told that, well, they're going to put you'll be introduced back into the rotation in 2013. They'll bring you back in. And so, I was kind of thinking about that a little bit. And then in April, and it was right around April Fool's Day, So I received this call from the president of the Naismith institution, and his name John DeLever, the president. He said, first of all, it came on my voicemail on the phone here at JU. I received it here, and then he said, "Well, you need to call the president of the Naismith." And so I picked up the phone and called him. Yeah, it's an April Fool joke. So I was thinking about it. I said, "Hey, boy, but it's a pretty cruel joke to play." But then, he verified the fact that I was one of the nominees and will be inducted into the Hall of Fame in the fall of in August. This August the 6th, in fact, I remember that. But all those things just started to develop between, and then I just, oh man, I'm frightened and preparing a speech, and I said, gee, how am I going to handle this part of this excitement and the family and everything? And that's what my friend Frank Pace stepped up again. You know, he kind of he was able to provide some advice for me and help me put together some words to be able to share, and that was pretty impressive for me to stand before there, have Dr. Kenny, you know, of all people, there as a supporting, and Mr. Gay, Bill Gay, and of course Alvin Brown, who was the mayor during that time. So we had all of those people, and I was presented by Dr. J, and I said, you know, at the end, I said, well, let me introduce all my doctors. Started with Dr. J. So that was really a traumatic and a high and a pinnacle that I can claim as part of the success story.
And you mentioned, you know, managing the emotions. We were talking beforehand how you're working with the kids and you know, talking about managing their emotions. So I know that you're still very active at the university. So I want you to talk about, you know, after all the success and going away and doing, you know, the absolute biggest things that you can do within your sport, coming back to the university.
This university, I've over the 50 years, I've watched so many positive and extraordinary things happen. And a couple of President Rumsberg, I watched him and worked with him for a number of years, and I also observed the really difficult challenges that he had to meet. And then to experience the difference what President Cost has brought to this institution in the last 7.5 years is just phenomenal. And watching the development and his ability to bring things together and find the resources that we need in order to operate this program. So for me to be a part of all of that it's just the same as being elected to the Hall of Fame. This is my Hall of Fame here on this campus, this environment, and being a part of this institution.
It's certainly been a trying year, and we had the athletic director, Artis Gilmore, on, and you know, just the fact that they have gotten through this year pretty successfully, and now every sport will be starting up next, you know, after the holiday. It's going to be an exciting thing, and one of the things that we talked about with him is, you know, I was here from 2000 to 2004, played across the street, played baseball, and to see, you know, to come back after a few years and see, like I said, the improvements that have been made with the administration, both university-wide as well as with the athletic department, to see the improvements across campus, there's a little bit of jealousy, and I think that's a good thing. You know, you don't want to come back and see everything exactly the same. So for me, you know, over the last 20 years to see the improvement, I've got to imagine it's got to be a whole different ballgame for you as well.
Oh boy, where do I start? You know, and I reflecting back on some of the early memories, we was talking about my teammates, and basically we were on the same floor at Grethel Hall. And Von Wedekin and Greg Nelson were roommates, and they were just right across the hall from the phone. I mean, everybody's had cell phones. The communication system is so fantastic now, but every night that phone just started ringing and just ringing and ringing. And you have Von and Greg working really hard, preparing, studying, and that's this distraction. It was just unbelievable. So finally, a couple of times, Greg walks out, answers the phone, and he says, "Oh, okay, hold on," and just put the phone, just hang, just, you know, put it up. So the phone just stopped for a breather, a ring for me. There was always calls coming in from myself, Chip Dublin, and all the people on that hall, except Vaughn and Greg. They was right there. But anyways, speaking in terms of all, so many changes and the excitement that is taking place in the development. Like for an example, the Howard building, with non-existence during the time that I was here, and I looked at some of the other buildings with the windows, and I remember Joe Williams and the athletic director, 2 coaches, and a secretary was not even half the size of this location right here. So yes, changes, good positive changes.
Absolutely, and we talked about the fact that not only just visibly things are getting bigger. You know, you look at the baseball field and lacrosse and soccer, and certainly they've done a lot of upgrades on Swisher, and then with the new practice facility, I mean, things are getting bigger, but they're also improving. It's not just about the size. I mean, just overall, there's so many things that the student athletes have available to them now that I never had, which I'm sure you never had. So it's a great thing. Like I said, there's a little bit of jealousy in there. Like, where was this when we were here? But I guess it's a good thing to see the advancement. So in closing, one of the things I wanted to ask you, being in your position, being such an iconic member of the university, just your advice for the current student athletes and anyone that is considering coming here. What would be your biggest piece of advice for a student athlete right now?
Well, the advice that I would share with the individual students and as well as athletes and all in the entire establishment of the young people, my advice to them is take advantage of the moment and prepare. Your future is going to come, but keep your eyes open and just take care of the moment, because the future is there and you're going to be a part of it. So the preparations in the now, in this moment.
Artis, thank you once again for coming on the show today. Like I said, it was an honor to have you on Dolphin Tales. Really appreciate you coming on.
Pat, thank you so much as well. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was fun.